Welcome to today's episode. We have the beautiful Kat John, and we're talking about authenticity off the yoga mat. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
So Kat is one of my nearest and dearest friends. You also are an author, a keynote speaker, an authenticity coach, and you have your own podcast called the Real, Raw and Relatable podcast. Comes out every Monday, same as the Warrior One podcast.
Yes.
And what I love about and what I'm in awe of you as a friend and also a mentor and a business person is that you really share real, raw and relatable, just like your podcast is called, and really authentically and vulnerably. And that's something that in full disclosure here today, I'm so nervous because this is a topic that is deep and scary sometimes. And so for me, Kat and I were talking a little bit off camera about how, sharing this kind of thing is hard, and particularly hard for me because it's not something I'm normally that open about. I'm open and honest one-on-one, but on a platform that's a little bit broader audience, I get a bit more scared. Yep. So thank you for coming.
I'll do all the heavy lifting.
Yes, let's do that. No, I was saying to Kat as well, it's nice to be in this position of being a little bit fearful because it pushes me outside the boundaries. And as a business owner, I often feel like I'm within my boundaries. I'm often in my comfort zone day to day. And so it feels really nice to be pushing it a little bit further, even though I'm scared.
Hey, I'm nervous too. Full disclosure, full authenticity. Like, this is your podcast. This is your community. I'm coming in as my full self. And then there's also fear of like, will your community like me? Will they not like me? Are they wondering why the hell that I'm here? So, I have those thoughts too.
Yeah, I'll have the same thoughts. It's my podcast. So there you go.
Yes.
So for the people that maybe don't know you, let's talk about who you are and what your mission is.
Yeah, sure. So professionally, as Nova has said, I'm an authenticity coach, keynote speaker, author, and I have my own podcast. As a human being, I'm a human being here on this planet doing my best to navigate this life, which I know can be tough. So my mission here, professionally and personally, is to know how to navigate the thoughts that are inside of our head, namely the limiting thoughts and beliefs and stories that are inside of our head that keep us from expressing our true authentic self, from listening to our heart, from listening to our intuition, from going after the things that matter. Because in my personal world, I certainly have previously given in to those thoughts and given in to those beliefs, thinking that, well, they're true. They're holier than thou and there's no other way. But across my life, I've had many circumstances where I have broken through those beliefs and stories, and I have listened to something deeper, which then has enabled me to express my authentic self. So how can I not share that with the world? How can I keep that to myself? Like, to me, that feels selfish. So I want to give that back to humanity.
What is living authentically to you?
That's a big question. I guess for me personally, if you look up in the dictionary what authenticity means or authentic, it's not a carbon copy. It's not a copy of anything else or anyone else. It is as it is. So firstly, there's that definition. But for me, it still lends into that definition. Authenticity is me being my unique self, less edited. I won't say unedited because authenticity it's a forever dance. It's a forever, I feel really free here. I feel like I can be my unique, less edited self, or I feel very unedited there, and that feels great. And then there are other times where I'm like, I'm editing still. I'm withholding, or I'm withdrawing, or I'm closing up, or I'm feeling like I need to overcompensate. But so yeah, for me, authenticity is where I can be uniquely me, less edited.
I mean, we talk about authenticity in yoga as a sense of, you need to meet your practice where you're at that day.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this in other episodes, that if you're feeling that day that you need more of a yin practice, go to yin. If you're feeling you need to push a little bit more and have a little bit more strength and tapas, you go to vinyasa and listening to that. And then also when you get to the mat, what does that look like? So how can we connect to authenticity off the mat? Like, what does that look like? And how can we use our own personal experiences to connect and live more authentically?
I guess the first question that you ask about how do we connect into authenticity, the first place that I'm ever going to teach, either to say to myself or teach my clients, is you need to become aware where you are not feeling authentic, where you feel like you are lessening yourself, where you feel like you are overcompensating, feeling like you need to put on the funny persona, whatever type of persona, in order to match the type of energy that's there, in order to be accepted or liked or appreciated, or like, oh, that chick is cool or that guy is cool. You know what I mean? So how do we connect to authenticity? There's a great big giant step prior to that, which is to firstly be aware of where you can see yourself editing, you know? And when we start to see ourselves editing, then we can go into the practice, which is, it's deep work. Authenticity is deep work. We go into the practice of self-inquiry. Why did I feel the need to do that? What was it about that environment? What was it about that person? What was the story behind that environment, that person? Am I telling myself that they're smarter than me, more intelligent than me, more this than me, so therefore I feel like I need to be smaller, or I feel like I need to Google a whole bunch of words in the bathroom and then come out and then relay them all and have no idea what they mean? You know what I mean? So in order to connect to authenticity, there's a fair whack of work that no one wants to come and do. You know, let's be fair. A lot of my work is not clickbaity type stuff. It's not the rah-rah positivity stuff. It's, are you ready to take a look at yourself? The other part of, in terms of sharing ourselves and sharing our stories, I guess, you know, I think that we crave these days, especially more and more over the last couple of years, we crave realness. You know, I don't know about you, but like, especially in my profession, in coaching, of like all the people that are really posting the highlight reels and what coaching gives them and their 7-figure life. And that's fine. Like, that's absolutely fine. But where's the freaking realness behind that? Where are you showing and sharing the days where you wanted to give up, where no one turned up to your first coaching call or your first group session or whatever it may be? You know, I really feel like to be tender to our humanness, we got to share that realness, you know. And I guess I say that from practice, because when I first started my business, I was like, right, I'm going to be the spiritual toxic positivity person that just comes out online and is going to share just that persona.
Really? I didn't know that.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Because that to me was like, I will look more legitimate, and it wasn't conscious. Believe me, it was not conscious. It'll look more legitimate. It'll look like I have my shit together. It'll look like, you know, I've been in the game for longer than I've actually been in it. So, oh my God, screaming in authenticity, right? Screaming in authenticity. And please, someone love me, like me, approve of me, buy my shit, you know, because I've got it all together. And so in the beginning, I was very much like that. Like, I look back at my videos now, I'm like, I just want to vomit. It's so cringeworthy. I'm like, I just want to grab that version of Kat, hug the shit out of her and go, stop it. Stop it. Stop. Quiet. And yes, it may have reached a certain level of connection to some people who were kind of up for toxic positivity and spirituality and all that kind of stuff, love and lighting everything. But I could feel something was missing, you know. And when people, similar to what you were saying, when people were with me one-on-one, they were like, whoa, you're like raw, you're deep, you're like, you know, you get inside stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know, that's what I'm like. And I remember one person actually said to me, but that's not what you're like online. And I was like, I've been called out, I feel naked. But it was my invitation to start sharing more real about areas of my life or about what I'm struggling with. And believe you me, there's a part of me that still says there like, you sound like a bit of a Looney Tune. You know, you
Really?
Oh yeah. I'm like, you're oversharing, Looney Tune. People are going to think that you're, now it's sort of the opposite. People are going to think you're too fucked up, so they're not going to want to come and work with you. You know what I mean? Whereas before I was like, I'm all love and light, come and work with me. Whereas now it's like, this bitch ain't got her shit together.
Yeah.
But interestingly, just the more I showed up in all facets of my life, the people responded.
The more vulnerable,
Yeah.
the more it attracted people.
Absolutely. My community were just like, oh, I feel...
I need this. I feel seen.
I feel seen. I feel less alone. I feel acknowledged. I don't feel like I'm the only loony bin in the world.
It's funny, as I hearing you speak, I was thinking this morning, because I was so nervous about this, that I was like Googling.
Tell me, please. Tell me.
Googling authenticity quotes so I couldn't sound intelligent.
I love you so much for sharing that right now. Oh
And
my
I was
gosh.
like, I've got to just find a good quote so I can sound intelligent and I could read it.
Did you write it down?
I couldn't find one, but I liked enough. And then I gave up.
I love you.
Thought, this is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
What am I doing? I just need to, you're my friend.
Yeah.
We just need to talk how we normally speak and
Wow.
rip off each other like we discussed and go for it and share authentically what comes up, not what I've predetermined because I want to be seen in a certain light.
Yes.
And this has been a challenge for me on this podcast, because I used to have, and I still to a degree have, a perfectionist mindset that whatever I produce, content, studios, whatever it is, whatever goes out into the world, I need it to look and feel a certain way. And if it isn't, it's not good enough. And it's that fear of like, well,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not an expert in this, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. It comes down to the soul fear of like, I'm not enough in that particular area. And it was so funny when you were saying about, you know, trying to show up in a certain way. And I was like, that was me.
And look, I still do it. That's why I say authenticity is a dance. Like, I still do it. I remember there was a high-profile celebrity in the fitness world who wanted me to come and talk to him about being on his app. And I got the email, and I like fully could feel myself jump out of my body. And, you know, the way that I was watching myself reply, I'm like, delete, 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 select all, delete, right? So I had to pull myself back into my body. As I was driving to that session and that appointment, I was thinking to myself, oh, okay, cool. How should I act? How should I be? Should I be like cool cat? Should I be this cat? Should I be that cat? Thinking of all the hats that I needed to put on or not put on. And I'm like, shut up, woman. You know, I really had to pull myself in and just go, no, you show up as you. And a mantra I was saying to myself was, stay in your boots. Stay in your boots. Do not get out of your shoes, because what I would typically do is jump out of myself and into them and like feel into what I think that they would want. No different to what you were just saying, predetermined, and then I'd stuff shit up. Yeah.
So speaking of that, I guess when that comes up, right? It's a barrier to be authentic because you want to be seen in a certain way. What are, I guess, some of the common barriers, and how do we overcome them, right? And like, how do we stop ourselves from not showing up authentically?
I mean, those barriers are really, they're invisible because they're in our head. The barriers that are there for us to be authentic, they are in our head. They are not real. They are not this glass of water. They are not this journal. They are not this, watch that sits there. It is not a materialized thing. They are stories inside of our head that we then project onto the other person, like that, workout dude. And I'm like, okay, cool. The story in my head says he's bigger than me. He's better than me. He's got more access to resources that I could possibly utilize. So then who do I have to be? You know what I mean? So the barrier is us. The barrier is the thoughts. But who wants to go and spend a whole lifetime like dealing with the thoughts in their head? It's
me.
Not me. Not me. Except I do. That is my job. It's a full-time job. It is a full-time mission. And because it is a full-time job and it is a full-time mission, some days you're not going to want to rock up to that job. Some days you're going to want to call in sick. Some days you're just going to be like, I'm going to do a half-assed job of this authenticity, sorting out my thoughts, crap. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. There has to be a real level of compassion and appreciation that this is a long journey, not a short journey. It's not like you do it for a short period of time authenticity is your next goalpost and then it's nailed. You know, there are
like yoga, it's a practice. It is a constant practice.
absolutely. So, you know, there's going to be some moments in your life where you will go to a party and you will have this, I want to be my most authentic self. But the thoughts are possibly at that point in time just too loud. They're so loud. And so when you go, you revert back to your automated, inauthentic persona, whatever that persona is for you. That's okay. You might then take a day to reflect upon that, journal upon that, and get to know those thoughts, those limiting stories that are the barrier. You know, it's lifelong.
In my personal life, and you know this, friendships, relationships, I am an open book. I am very raw with my emotions. I'm very open with my feelings, and I kind of lead with my heart in my one-on-one or small group interaction.
Yeah.
It has, in the last 8 years, been difficult at times to try and balance the authenticity in a more professional environment, right? Where you have to be a little bit more diplomatic or you have to show up in a certain way. And as I said earlier in the podcast, this is a scary medium for me because I can't see who's on the other side. I don't know who's listening to this. So that is harder to share because I don't know. So how do you balance that authenticity in a professional environment or an environment where you are expected to show up in a certain way?
Yeah. Oh, good question. And to that, I'll say, firstly, there's different professions in the world, you know, and your profession and where you sit in your world is different to my profession and where I sit in my world. For example, if we're using us.
And we're lucky, right?
Yeah.
Because we actually have quite open clients and different, you know, in the yoga world, it's so easy to, you know, just yesterday I was at the studio and I'm sharing, you know, intimate things with people and experiences, and it's beautiful, same as you, right? But not everyone has that privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that with like my community, I'm pretty open. You know, I'm an open book and I choose to be. But there are edges where I choose not to go because I just know. How do I know? It is a feeling. It is a simple feeling. It's its own block, but it's not a negative block. It's just like, we don't touch that. So for example, I'll talk very openly about many things in my world, about my relationship, about intimacy, about non-intimacy, about money with my partner, etc. But where I won't touch and go is the in-depth stuff with my stepdaughters or their own mother and the dynamics between that, because it is just, do not go there. We don't go there in order to protect. There's more people to protect. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's the edge that I know don't touch. But for example, like I have my team, or I have more contractors, but then I have an assistant. When we get on our call every Monday, we will talk, we just sort of have a bit of a clearing moment. And I know that I will clear to a certain level, but I won't clear all the way because I'm holding space. Like I am the head honcho, like you're the head honcho. But I want to be vulnerable. I want to be authentic. I'll let her know, you know what, I'm actually experiencing a little bit of shit in my life with the girls or with Steve, or I'm just feeling off right now, but I won't go into the specifics.
Yeah.
So one, because I'm holding space, and two, she actually can't hold the space that I need to be held in. Does that make sense? So
100%.
I think that there are natural barriers for us to respect. And being authentic, it doesn't mean you have to be authentic everywhere. And you have to be 100% authentic all the time, otherwise you're failing. Like that's the love and light, spiritual bypassing, toxic positivity stuff that I'm not a fan of, you know? So I think that when it comes to business and then when it comes to personal, you meet where the natural barrier is. And then there might come a time where it's like, you know what, you probably can open up 5% a little more, 5% a little more, but that takes us being very in touch with ourselves. So it's, like I said earlier, it's a dance. Always going to be a dance.
I love what you said about it's sharing the vulnerability, but potentially not sharing the detail around it.
Yes.
Right? That really resonates with me. We do a weekly whip similar to your one-on-one with your assistant with our core team that are in the back end of the Warrior One Yoga admin. And we do something called highlights, improvements, and fuck-ups.
Yep.
Every week,
Love that.
you know this.
Yeah.
And so often we can, dive into the realm of personal, right? Because it's like, well, for example, a fuck up or maybe a low light could be that, it's been a really hard week with, managing children and balance, and I haven't got to yoga, and I felt really, stressed in my home environment as an example. And there's permission there, permission granted to share that vulnerably and openly. And often I do say, like I'm having a bit of a this day or that day or whatnot. And there's that chance there to say it, but then without giving the specific details around what has happened.
Yes.
And I think in the workplace, that's a really beautiful space. I've also asked my partner to do it, and he's actually also, and he's more of in a corporate environment, with his team whips every week, he also does the highlights, improvements, and
I
fuck-ups.
love that.
Yeah. And
Love that.
And it just gives insight into what's going on for people.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but not everything. And see, that
100%.
is your natural edge of authenticity
Yes.
in the workplace. You still are vulnerable. You're still sharing. It's not like, all right, team, thank you very much for divulging all of your stuff. I am great. I am wonderful, because then you're not relatable.
Yeah.
People can't connect, and then they feel distant from you, and they're like, actually, I'm not going to share my fuck up this week because we're not all in it.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be all in it, sharing every little detail. It's just like, this week sucks ass.
Yes.
And that's that.
And I think there's also an integrity piece. Like I always say to the team, I don't want to talk about anything or share anything from my perspective that I'm not willing to share with the person that we're potentially talking about.
Yeah.
So then that's also an authentic
Beautiful
piece. So it doesn't feel like we're just talking about something that we can't deal with one-on-one with that person.
Yes.
So that's been really massive too. So of course, being vulnerable, there's a fear component, right? Judgment, rejection. If somebody's listening to this going, I want to be authentic, but I have got that fear of being judged or rejected, or they have faced that in the past and therefore they're then closed, right? That's potentially what's happened. How would you navigate that?
Oh, I mean, it is a huge fear that we all have, to not be accepted, to be rejected, to be abandoned. And I think we all have had an experience of being ourselves when we were younger, and that was clipped by a teacher, by a peer at school, an auntie, an uncle, just a flippant comment. And then we go, oh my gosh, I need to armor up. I need to put armor around my heart, and I need to put armor around that was my authentic expression, right? So the first question is, well, how does it feel to live your life with that armor and boxing up and putting in the attic your authentic self? Like, that's firstly a question to ponder and ask yourself, and are you prepared to live the rest of your life like that? And I think the answer is we don't want to live the rest of our life like that. But then it's, again, dealing with that invisible barrier that feels very real, that says, please don't open up again. Please don't get the box from the attic. Please don't open up your authentic self and step into that and put yourself in their boots, because what if? And I guess what I would say to that is, expect yourself to not be liked, to not be rejected. Like, I don't like every person in the world. And I know that not every person in the world likes me. But in my fantasy, I'm like, everyone likes me and everyone must like me. That's what, of course, I would love. But we're just not in that type of reality in this world, in this experience of the human experience, which sucks. Believe me, it really sucks. So when we have the expectation that we're possibly going to be rejected, that we're possibly not going to be liked, there can be a little less blow, It's just like, okay, cool. Well, I'd rather be me. And if people don't like that, it's not then sticking the bird up and being like, I don't care, and sort of having that carelessness attitude. It's just like, that's okay. And really what helps me is, I don't like everyone. I don't. There are some people in this world that I'm like, you're just not my vibe. You're just not my jam. I don't want to have a cup of tea with you or a gin. And that's cool. That's okay. No different to I'm not people's jam all the time or bread and butter. So having that as a reminder, it's like, okay, well then I can't expect everyone to like me. So if I'm trying to protect myself by being this false version and then in hope people will like me for that false version, it's like, is that worth it? You know what I mean? Is it worth you missing out on having the freedom to be more of yourself? So my answer to that is expect to not be liked, expect to not be rejected, and at least you've got you. You know, like in my experience, at least you've got you. Like far out, when you've got you back, I don't know. There's no greater feeling. I mean, there's a few other greater feelings, but it's pretty up there. You know, it's pretty up there.
It is up there. And that's something I'm in awe of you, because you are really good at showing up authentically. I see it when we're in social situations together, and it's easier to do it when I'm around you as well. But I definitely have that fear of not being liked by everyone, for sure. Do you use meditation to realign in terms of authenticity?
I use meditation as a self-inquiry practice. So if I have, like if we use that party example, if I was out at a party and I felt like, I was off, I will then use meditation as a way to ask myself inquiry questions. Like I shared before, what was it about that environment? What was it about that person? What expectations was I putting upon myself, or what expectation was I putting on the environment in order to give me a certain something? And so I'll take those questions in, and that's when I will sit quiet. I will often sit in silence or just listen to music. And then I have a journal in front of me to get those answers out. And then I let those answers land. I let them land, I let them sit, I let them percolate, and I try again. Yeah.
Do you do stream of consciousness journaling, just letting it all come out, or do you have specific
No,
prompts?
mine's typically self-inquiry based. When I have the question though, then when the answers comes, I will not lift my pen for some time. So then it's like a stream of consciousness, but it's directed by a question.
Right.
Yeah.
And with your physical yoga practice, I know that you really like yin yoga.
Yeah.
So I know you use that as a physical tool to undo physical pain and stress in the body. Do you have a practice you do within the yoga practice? Like, do you think? Do you try and switch off? Do you relate it back to this in any way?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I find my biggest challenge with yoga, vinyasa yoga. And typically because I'm shit at it. Because I'm shit at it, I'm not going to do it. But the reason why I struggle a lot with it is because I'm judging myself. Especially and this is like, I'm going to put it all out, when it's hot and when it's summer and I wear shorts. I've got a fucking conundrum with my legs and my knees. Like, it's so annoying, and that's how much I've limited myself with not wearing shorts. But when I'm in downward dog and I look at my knees and then I look at all the other people's knees behind me, I'm like, I've got fat knees. And so then I don't enjoy the practice. So the practice is like, I'm so in comparison. Yeah, I'm so in comparison with their chaturangas look better than mine, and I'm still doing the like downward dog with my knees, and I'm not doing a full chaturanga, or I still can't do crow pose. So
full disclosure, I can't do crow pose either.
Oh, amazing.
Never been able to do it.
Really?
Can't do it.
That makes me feel better. Thank you. I'll go to yoga with you. But yin is just my jam. I feel it. I love it. My thoughts are off. I've got blankets on me. I don't have to be in a certain pose. I don't care if I need 3 blocks to hold me up in pigeon pose. I don't know, that lends itself to me in terms of like fully giving myself over. So I know vinyasa is my practice. Like, legitimately, it's my practice to not compare. Or like I wear, high-waisted, I wear my, my normal pants. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in this pose and I want to pull my top down because I can feel my muffin top over it. Like, I'm in my head.
Wow.
Really in my head. So I have full empathy and understanding of people that when they're in social settings, they're in their head where I can find my body. In vinyasa, I find it difficult to find my body.
I think like anything, it's good to understand where the pain point is coming from.
Yeah.
Right? Because it
Yep.
kind of switches it off a little bit more.
Yep.
And I'm sure so many people listening to this have the same feeling. I know when I don't feel a certain way in my body, the practice does feel different. Because
Yeah.
when you move and you twist and you do different things, you're like, oh, this doesn't feel like it does when I'm feeling a little bit more confident in my body. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a thing.
Yep, definitely.
So before we close, is there any, I guess, takeaways or final thoughts where people can find you? Stalk you?
Stalk me, yeah. Firstly, I just want to say I've loved this share. I've loved jamming with you. Thank you for asking me to come in and entrusting me with your community. Like I've said it here already, but I just want to say it again. Being your authentic self, it is a dance. I dance with it every single day as a step parent. I dance with it when I interact with my stepdaughter's mother. I'm in the dance with it when I go to my parents' house and I'm like, don't try and solve their problems. Don't try and work out the energy in the room and then decide how you have to be to appease mum and dad because they're being little turds to one another. Like it's for real. It's a forever dance. And just please don't look at me like if you do go and stalk me and think, bam, she's nailed it, she's at the final destination. It's just not like that. It really isn't. And with that, then you can have greater compassion for yourself on the journey. It is a full-time job. You can either make it a part-time job or a casual position, whatever it is that you want to do. It's just worth investigating. That's what I'd say.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Have you heard the analogy that like the reason, I'm going to stuff it up, but something like the reason that we all go to yoga is so we don't punch each other off the mat. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard that.
It's similar to that or something like that. We go to yoga.
I'll take it.
Yoga makes you a better human. I love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.